Stacey, good morning. How you feeling?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thanks, Mully. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, all of the good things that we celebrate over these special times in December.
Same to you. You were fantastic post-game. We heard part of that. You reacted, and I think that's the key to those moments, Stacey. You were just reacting in real time to a lot of chaos, but a lot of jubilation.
Yeah.
And what will you remember most about that experience?
That experience, David, thank you. It's my job just to give them the floor. And that experience was not unlike how you would go about an NFC championship or AFC championship situation. None of that is scripted. I don't like scripting things. Of course, I have ideas in my mind when I speak with players. But, going back to the days where I was competing and you have these, moments that happen in time that will never happen the same way again. And when they're victorious, they're very special. And you just react with them because, that was something that none of us will ever experience again. Not only was it for the Chicago Bears against their arch rival, but it was a defining moment for how far this team has come under, the tutelage of Ben Johnson and the changing of the guard in Chicago. And so you saw a quarterback with an incredibly, friend of mine, brought this to my attention too, that, a pass play like that. It's been run all season long for the Chicago Bears and all these explosives, and for Caleb to have that moment. And that also was a defining moment for me when he threw it to DJ for 46 yards. Because that is quintessential Ben Johnson. That play was put in on Thursday. For DJ to say, I knew exactly when I looked in his eyes. Ben is so strategic during the week in what he implements and what he provides his players, the database for which he provides his players of, here's the intel, here's what we're going to do, here are the plays I have in mind. That's why the Wildcat play to Monangai was so obscure, because those things usually work. They're not gimmicks. Ben doesn't have gimmicks in his offense. Now, he may have wanted to take that one back, but that was rehearsed, trust me, over and over in practice, which is why it was so dumbfounding to all of us.
Honestly, to me, it was just unnecessary. They had been marching the ball down the field. They were running the ball well. Why not just play it straight and run the ball there? I didn't think they needed to fool anybody And I'm not I thought he told the team, on me, my fault, let's move on. I think he's accountable not only in terms of demanding it, but taking it himself. And I love that about him. I don't have a problem with him, but I just, at that moment, I was like, oh my God, you were doing so well, run the thing in. and it was just frustrating because then they stalled. It was almost like that kind of stopped some of their
deflated
momentum.
The crowd and killed the momentum.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, I totally agree. I hear you, but you're right, though. Ben did take accountability. It's like just take the layup, right? It's like if you have a fast break and it's 3-on-1 and you decide to shoot the three, why'd you shoot the three? Just take the layup.
You
when
better
you've got
hit it.
Numbers. Right. You got to hit it. You've got to hit it. That's right. And if you don't, it doesn't look like the right decision. So, listen, we haven't had to scrutinize many of Ben Johnson's decisions.
That's true.
And I'm okay with that as they get ready to go to San Francisco this week.
How ready are they for that challenge, Stacey? You saw last night the 49ers are clicking, and that offense is working, and that defense is playing well enough.
Yeah, Kittle had a season high despite the ankle injury. Well, an interesting stat, fascinating stat on these Niners. They haven't punted in 21 straight offensive drives. Okay, so you got to come out if you're the Bears, and if you want to seal this division, right? You got to come out and score against them. Now, both of these teams are averaging 26 a game. They're almost identical in terms of what they're putting up offensively. The one area bugaboo for these Niners, they have 20 giveaways this season. So if I'm looking at them from a defensive standpoint, and I'm the Bears, and we lead the league, and I'm a Chicago Bear, we lead the league in takeaways, I'm going out there trying to take the football away from the San Francisco 49ers on the road. and give it back to this offense. And they got to score early. I just don't think the Bears can afford to stall, to use your word, Mully, as we saw them do after the Monungai botched snap in Chicago on Saturday.
There were so many huge moments in that game. And I think we've all agreed that getting the onside kick was the most unlikely of them. But the minute that happened, I really felt like they were not just going to tie the game, they were going to win the game. I mean, it was just such an unlikely event to have happened. I think there had only been 5 before they got that one, which was the 6th of the year. It's just not something that's very easy to do. Cairo Santos had like one of the best games of his life because he was playing the wind on those field goals. He made the extra point at the end, which they had to have. But really, that onside kick was just beyond human comprehension.
Yeah, besides seeing David Haugh in the press room after the game, the player I was most excited to see was Cairo Santos.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, I walked into the presser with David, and I was like, he and I looked at each other from down the aisle, and just kind of giggled because we're watching something special here. But to hear Cairo, I specifically wanted to know a couple things from him. My brother was a kicker. Now, he was a punter, but he was always working with, obviously, the special teams kicking unit. And, when you're kicking in Canada, I used to have fun conversations with Burke about, because the weather in Canada is insane.
Right.
And so I'm always fascinated by these punters. And Cairo brought up the game against Buffalo a couple years ago when I think it was Bass was kicking for them. And I remember going up to him and asking him how this wind, because it was the second windiest. That was probably the gustiest I've ever seen. And I've seen quite a few. But he brought up that game to me, and he said this was up there in terms of Cairo did one of the gustiest games he had to perform in his career. If he's not the special teams player of the week or in the NFC, I don't know who should be. I mean, for him to hit, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a 46, a 51, a 43, a critical extra point, and for him to have to wait on the wind. We do that when we play golf.
He let a gust kind of calm down, and the way he kicked the thing,
he sensed is like he knew it was going to be calm at the perfect moment it was.
Yeah, and then also I said, well, did you have to change the trajectory on your ball? So like you guys know, if you're golfing, you might have to hit it a little bit more, slice it one way or the other if the wind is that bad. Now, hopefully you're not golfing on a day like that, but I mean, like for him to say to me, I didn't try to change the trajectory of my kicks. Like, imagine being in his shoes and having to slightly alter because you did have to kick into that thing.
Yes.
That was a beast. That was an absolute beast. I mean, I was incredibly impressed by his performance. For the Bears to come back, they were down 16 points in the final 2 and overtime. Like, going into that critical time period, I was standing down there, you guys, 10 feet away from Matt LaFleur for the final 2 minutes plus overtime, and I just watched him like it's like a little movie down there because he's talking to the officials nonstop. The Packers are up, and then all of a sudden, Judea Walker catches that ball, and Matt LaFleur was emotionless. He just stared at it. He turned around and marched back into the sideline. And then I looked down at their players and I could feel the deflation. And now this thing is tied. We're going to overtime. Like it was a crazy moment. Like I said, postgame was not unlike, celebrating an NFC championship type moment. I think you've got to temper those emotions this week if you're the Bears, though.
Right.
Because you have another big one coming up.
And Stacey, you mentioned the elements, and that's what makes home field so important in the playoffs potentially. And you look at the NFC balance of power, and you see all the teams, and you know all the strengths and weaknesses of the respective playoff opponents potentially. How do you see the NFC stacking up? And if you look at the NFC West, they've got maybe 3 of the best teams, but then you look at the Bears and they say, what about us? And why not us?
Yeah.
How do you see the NFC shaping up, and how important is home field advantage?
Yeah, the West is nuts. I mean, the Niners are 11-4. The Seahawks are 12-3. They're currently the number 1 seed. I don't even still know if we know who the Eagles are. They're 10-5.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a little bit of a challenge against the Commanders this past week, but they came out pretty handedly and handed them the loss. The Packers are currently the 7th seed, right behind the Los Angeles Rams. So there you got those 3 NFC West teams that are in this thing, which is what we saw with the North last year, David. But what's crazy is Detroit. Now, Detroit has to win out. So they still have on the road 2 divisional games, Minnesota and Chicago. If the Packers lose out, the Packers have Baltimore at home, and then they go on the road to Minnesota. If they win out, obviously we don't see Detroit get in, but Detroit's sitting in that 8th slot right now. Minnesota's right behind them. It's been a wild year in the NFC. Don't sleep on the Vikings to disrupt this thing. I mean,
right.
It's gonna be crazy. It's just that the West has they're all 11 plus wins, and that's going to be hard to overcome if you're Green Bay needs to win out, and Detroit is still hanging on by a hair of the chinny chin chin.
And no one wants to hear it, but the reality is the Packers, considering losing Micah Parsons, losing the quarterback in game, all the injuries they had going in, Evan Williams, Zach Tom, the fact that
Josh
Jacobs
didn't practice all week
and fumbled, didn't even have a down during the week. They played very well. I mean, they stayed in that game. If they had made a play in the red zone, it would have been a different game. And I'm just acknowledging that was a pretty gutsy performance from Green Bay to be in that game. Obviously, it was euphoric, and I'm like everyone in Chicago, delighted to see the way the thing ended. But man, they did something special just to get to that point. Now, you could argue that they choked it away at the end, whatever way you want to go with it, but you got to acknowledge it's a pretty good football team.
Very good football team. Defense gives up 19 points in the fourth quarter plus overtime. So that was the downfall, because when you run for 192 yards, you're supposed to win the game.
Yep.
And to your point, Mully, whatever you want to say about Matt LaFleur, there's some really good coaching in this division, and he's one of the best. I mean, for him, and he's had to do this throughout, his time with Jordan Love, where we've seen Love get injured and Malik Willis steps in, and 9 for 11, 121 passing yards, a 143 rating. He can run it too. I mean, the Bears just had trouble stopping the run against these guys. They're very well coached. I think Jeff Hafley is going to be a head coach here real soon in the NFL, if somebody's looking for a defensive-minded head coach. He's very structured. The players love him. I mean, he's got an open door policy there in Green Bay. They can go in at will and talk to him. And then of course, Matt LaFleur, he's really on top of things. But I look at Chicago though, guys, and I just think what a staff they've assembled. I mean, this is the tightest unit I can recall in Chicago in a very long time, in terms of their coaching staff linked to the players, to the way they love each other. That post-game thing was unscripted, and for Colston to call in Tremaine Edmonds and then Jalen Johnson to come in and pat DJ Moore on the hat. The offense and defense are very synced, and they've got a good vibe going, and you certainly hope that sort of, if you're a Bears fan, that momentum continues into the playoffs.
Because they have a lot of guys who haven't won before, and that shows they're just
totally.
They're giddy themselves because they're experiencing this for the first time.
Right.
So it isn't passé, and they are getting into it. And Stacey, along those lines, Bears just announced Pro Bowlers, 3 of them, Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, Kevin Byard are the 3 selections for the Bears. Anybody left out? And all of those are most deserving because they've all had pretty solid seasons.
Well, there's a lot of good cornerbacks in the league, but Shawnee Wright has had a special year, and
that's
Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard is like my go-to. I mean, he's just, his leadership has gone to another level. But Nashawn Wright is. I hope this game will be on NBC this week, and I can't wait to hear some of Melissa Stark's stories if they get into them, and how those guys in the booth are telling some of these Bears stories over the course of this year, because he's a special one. And you talk about humble and taking advantage of your shot. I think he really has. TJ Edwards came out of the game with 10 tackles this past weekend. Like, it's hard to do. That guy just has an unrelenting motor. I think when you have players like that on the field, despite some of the shortcomings or injuries they've had, I think they've held this thing together pretty well, and you have to give a lot of credit to the coaching staff.
Yeah, what was extraordinary about that particular game was the idea that not only did the Bears make a lot of penalties that game, they had 10 penalties for 104 yards. They had so many personal fouls. It was like they came out of the locker room shot out of a cannon. DeMarco Jackson diving on the top. I've never seen that ever not called. I've never seen it happen. The crowd surfing one. They just seemed like they were out of their minds. And we asked Edwards, we talk to him every week when he's healthy, and we asked him who had the last word? Who fired everyone up? How did it get to a point where there was this sort of, I don't know how you describe it, a rage to them.
Fever pitch
that was, you gotta, and it's a lesson learned. You gotta control that as you get into bigger games and playoff games, etc.
Totally. You're right on the penalties, by the way. 10 for 105 to the Bears. And wow. I know Ben was pissed about that. But also, how about the red zone defense? The Bears were outstanding in that realm. And you're right. They've got to take this momentum now. And also, these types of wins have to become commonplace for the Bears. And I think that will be the expectation. And I go back to Ben, and I just think of how steadfast he is in everything he does during the week. And, this week is going to be so interesting because the Niners are so well coached as well, and it's going to be on the road. And, I'm going to Indy for the Jags and the Colts. And I'm going to have my eyes on San Francisco. The whole day, because I can't wait to see this thing on Sunday night. It's going to be awesome.
Stacey, great stuff. Have a great holiday, and it was terrific to see you
enjoy
Saturday
the holiday.
night.
Great. Thanks, Stacey.
Guys. Appreciate y'all.